In 1953, a heart-wrenching crime shook America to its core. It was a story of innocence lost, a family devastated, and a nation gripped by the horrifying betrayal of trust. 6-year-old Bobby Greenlease, the son of a wealthy Kansas City car dealer, was abducted in broad daylight, setting off one of the most infamous manhunts in U.S. history. What began as a desperate plea for his safe return quickly turned into a nightmare. The tale of greed, deception, and cold-blooded murder unraveled, leaving behind questions that lingered for decades. Hello and welcome to the Grim Files. In this episode, we'll explore Bobby Greenlease's tragic case, examining the chilling motives behind the crime, the hunt for justice, and the legacy it left behind. Join me further as I dive into the details of a crime that shocked a nation and forever changed the lives of those involved. Robert Bobby Cosgrove Greenlease Jr. was born to Robert Greenlease Sr. and Virginia Greenlease, his second wife, on February 3, 1947. They were married in 1939. Greenlease's first wife was Bessie Rush, whom he married on March 3, 1913. The elder Greenlease was a multimillionaire car dealer and entrepreneur, having made his fortune by introducing General Motors vehicles to the Great Plains in the early 20th century, owning dealerships from Texas to South Dakota. He was 65 years old when Bobby was born in 1947. The Greenleases were said to have been devoted to Bobby. According to author John Heidenreich, Bobby was said to be a trusting boy. Bonnie Hetty, one of the kidnappers, later stated that from the moment she appeared at his school posing as his aunt to take him to his mother, he just took her hand and did anything he was told to do. In September 1953, Carl Hall, aged 34 at the time, and Bonnie Hetty, aged 41 at the time, kidnapped Bobby from Notre Dame de Chauny, a Catholic preschool located in Kansas City, Missouri. The kidnappers were drug-addicted alcoholics who were living together in nearby St. Joseph. In the early 1930s, Hall had attended Kemper Military School in Boonville with Paul Robert Greenlease, Bobby's adopted older brother. Hall had planned for years to victimize his former classmates' wealthy family. Hetty visited Bobby's school and persuaded a nun, Sister Morand, that she was his aunt, telling her that his mother had suffered a heart attack and was in St. Mary's Hospital. She then took Bobby away in a taxi driven by John Oliver Hager, of the Ace Cab Company, who would testify in court. When another nun from the school rang to inquire about Virginia Greenlease's condition, she discovered the truth and her husband contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Hall and Hetty took the child across the state line to Johnson County, Kansas, where Hall shot him dead with a snub-nosed .38 caliber revolver. They then took the child's body to St. Joseph and buried him in the backyard of Hetty's house, at 1201 South 38th Street. A few hours after the kidnapping, the Greenleases received the first ransom letter concerning the return of their son. The first letter, mailed for special delivery and postmarked at 6 p.m. on September 28, 1953, demanded $600,000 in $20 and $10 bills be placed in a duffel bag. The kidnappers promised Bobby's safe return in 24 hours and as long as there were no tricks in delivering the money. The second ransom letter was postmarked at 9:30 p.m. on September 29, 1953. Inside the envelope in which this letter was mailed was the Jerusalem medal that Bobby Greenlease had worn. The letter again contained demands for $600,000 and stated that Bobby was okay but homesick. Overall, the Greenleases received over a half-dozen ransom notes and 15 telephone calls. The final communication between the Greenleases and the kidnappers was a telephone call received at 1 a.m. on October 5, 1953, at the Greenlease residence. The kidnappers stated that they had received the $600,000 ransom money and assured the Greenleases that their son was alive and that he would be returned in 24 hours. Unknown to the family, Bobby was already dead before Hall and Hetty sent the first ransom letter. Once in St. Louis, Hall left Hetty in the middle of the night in a rented room. He contacted criminal associates to enlist their help in diverting police attention. One of the associates, a former sex worker named Sandra O'Day, was supposed to fly to Los Angeles and mail a letter Hall had written. It was thought that this would divert police attention from St. Louis. However, O'Day caught a glimpse of the ransom money. St. Louis police soon learned that Hall was flaunting a large sum of money, and they brought him in for questioning. Hall eventually implicated Hetty. The police found her at an apartment at 4504 Arsenal Street and discovered Bobby's body in a shallow grave in her backyard. Bobby was later interred in the family mausoleum at Forest Hill Calvary Cemetery in Kansas City. Bobby's kidnapping and murder scandalized the nation. Because he had been taken over state lines, the crime became a federal case under the Federal Kidnapping Act. Hall and Hetty both pleaded guilty to kidnapping. The jury deliberated an hour and 8 minutes before recommending a death sentence. The two were executed together in the Missouri gas chamber on December 18, 1953. Only 11 weeks and 4 days passed between the time the crime was committed and the executions. Neither Hall nor Hetty made any attempts to appeal. Hetty is one of only 4 women to have ever been executed by federal authorities as of 2021. Since the federal government did not have any execution facilities, Missouri's state facilities, and thus the then legal gas chamber, were used to carry out the executions. This was the case for all federal executions in the 20th century, before the first executions at the federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, in 2001. Hetty is the only woman executed by the federal government by gassing. Hetty is buried in Clermont, Nottoway County, Missouri, where she grew up. Only $288,000 of the ransom money was recovered. The missing $312,000 remained a subject of wide speculation. Some of the theories accounting for this were: Hall tried unsuccessfully to bury the cash near the Merrimack River, though the FBI later searched that area in vain. Suitcases in Hall's possession upon his arrest were not brought to the 11th District Precinct Station by the arresting officers, Lieutenant Louis Ira Shoulders and Patrolman Elmer Dolan. Shoulders and Dolan told a grand jury that the $288,000 they turned over was the full amount seized from Hall when they arrested him. This statement was determined to be false. In fact, it was alleged that Shoulders had taken the balance of the $600,000 ransom that Hall had on him at the time of arrest. Both officers were subsequently federally indicted for and convicted of perjury. Shoulders was convicted on April 15, 1954, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. He died on May 12, 1962. Dolan was convicted on March 31, 1954, and sentenced to 2 years in prison. In 1962, he informed the FBI that he had perjured because his fear of Shoulders exceeded his fear of prison. Dolan received a pardon from U.S. President Lyndon Johnson on July 21, 1965. The tragic murder of Bobby Greenlease remains one of the most heart-wrenching crimes in American history. It also stands as a sobering reminder of the lengths to which greed can drive people. Despite the swift convictions and executions of Carl Hall and Bonnie Hetty, questions about the missing ransom money and the full truth behind the crime still linger in the shadows of history. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the darkest chapters of 1950s America. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to the Grim Files for more deep dives into the world of true crime. This was a mini episode, but if you like longer form content, check out my channel, where I have more in-depth documentaries. Let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the truth often lies in the darkest corners of history.